The Daily Dribble.
And welcome back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit, here with the full squad again this week. Joining us is Mr. Liam Hancock.
How's it going, guys?
And Mr. Roe Hancock.
How are we going?
I tell you what, Lee, welcome back, mate. This time of year, it is all about load management, isn't it?
It is.
Did you have a nice week off? You've enjoyed yourself, feeling refreshed, rejuvenated?
I am. I must ask you both, how's it feel talking to the champ?
Oh,
here we
well,
go.
okay, let's get it out of the way
The
early,
champ.
I guess.
Okay. No,
Credit to Lee. He's won the almighty NBA, Daily Dribble NBA Fantasy League, and it was a tight one in the end,
It was
but
very
he's
tight.
just taken it out.
a very tight tussle. A very well-deserved winner. You were probably the... after probably a slow first third to the season, I would
Yeah.
say, the last two thirds you really dominated.
Yeah, well,
I
Roe
think so.
Roe had that game on top of me for most of the season. Then I caught up and ended
Yeah.
up winning. But that makes me, from the 3 years we've done it, 2 out of 3. So you'd have to say I'm favourites going into next
And
year.
you're one.
And
And
Roe's got the other one.
in which case would suggest that I'm probably due a win
You
next
might
year,
be
being
due.
the perfect time with the money league coming in. Would
Yep.
you not think?
I
Well,
think so. There's a lot on the line next season, and tell you what, when we
Reputation,
start
funds.
to put some coins on the line, it's going to get competitive. So.
Right now, it's a Hancock winning record. You know,
Oh,
It-
you've got
only-
the numbers game there, don't you?
It's
Oh,
a
two of us.
family dynasty at the moment.
yeah.
Mate, that's 100% increase on the Zammit name.
You know
Like,
what? I think we put in 50 each,
Whoa,
50
heavy.
each,
hit
yeah.
and
it.
then the winner
High
gets.
Come on, let me just have
The
a little
winner
feel
get-
in your pockets here. They
The-
must be quite deep.
The winner would get 400 if it all went to them.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm
here
willing
for
to
it.
do
Let's
that.
do it.
Yeah, for
Sean, well, there you go, guys. We've mentioned it over the last couple of weeks. If you want to be involved, we're getting in quite early, but in next season's NBA Fantasy League, we're going to have a money league. We've got American listeners out there, so 50 Australian dollars, $400 to the winner. That is
Oof.
outrageous, and I love it. I'm here for it, lads.
Oh,
Great
gee.
stuff, but well done again to you,
Appreciate
Lee.
it.
Very well-deserving winner.
Thank you.
Guys, a big shout out to both Stadium Scene and The Cover. Those two networks doing tremendous things for not only us, but a whole host of other content creators in and around Australia, New Zealand, America, and Canada. So very appreciative of all their continued hard work and support. And just quickly, a big shout out to everyone out there. A big happy Easter to everyone, to the gentleman on the couch here, to
Yes.
all of our avid fans and listeners. Hope you guys have a wonderful little period. Enjoy, relax, eat some fish.
Yes.
Which 2 out of 3 of us have done today.
Yep.
Bro, Lee, just before coming on air, I think we should, we've hyped you up here with the fantasy league. Let's tear you down a little
I
bit.
don't know if it's tearing down.
Mate,
I've said the
Good Friday, you on the chicken.
I'm on the chicken. It's like me. I was saying this to Ryan and a couple other family members. It's like me is it called Ramadan? That fast. That,
yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
It's like me.
Well, now we're
doing
transversing a whole host of other cultures, and
Be
this
careful.
is a dangerous
If
little
I'm
game.
not Christian or believe in Jesus, why do I have to eat fish today?
Ooh, that's a great point, but I
And he's
feel-
always been that little bit different, so it doesn't surprise me at all.
Interesting question. It could be one for the poll, and maybe just because we have listeners all around the globe, just an interesting point. Like with Easter and Good Friday in particular, do you celebrate by not eating red meat and sticking to the fish? It'd be interesting to see what the poll turned up there. So that could be something to look out for on the socials. Which, while you're at it, be sure to subscribe and like
Please do.
Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. All of them, guys.
All of the good ones.
Let's get into it. Big show in store today. We're going to rattle through some odds and ends before getting into our play-in predictions. Now,
Very close.
the play-in tournament kicks off as of next week. So by the time we record next week, the play-in will be well and truly underway, should I say.
I think we're all on the same page as in how the segment is structured this time,
You
opposed
reckon?
to a couple of weeks ago.
There's not many where we're all on the same page. So this would be a nice little
This will be
change for
interesting.
once. Again, hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory,
Yeah.
but if we'll find a way, won't we?
Yes.
Always
Guys,
do.
Let's get into some very, very quick odds and ends here. Starting first and foremost with the news during the week that LaMarcus Aldridge, after 16 seasons, has officially retired. Was it last season or the season before? I think it was last season. It looked as if he'd pulled the plug
I
due
think
to
he did. Yep.
medical reasons there. Nice to see him go out on his own terms, though. Was the number 2 pick in the 2006 draft. Across 1,076 games in his career, averaged 19 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, playing across the Spurs, Blazers, and Nets there. It kind of shocked me, to be honest, just getting things ready for this. I'd forgotten he was the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah.
I know. It seems so long ago, but for me, he's one of the more underrated big men of recent times anyway. Like, I think of my time when I was first getting into the NBA, and he was one of the dominant forces in the NBA at the time. And at that time, he probably still wasn't getting the credit that he deserved. And all credit to him, though. The curtains have closed on his career, but gee, he was absolutely huge for the Portland Trail Blazers in particular.
How many seasons?
16.
Like, it's very hard in 16 seasons to have a stat line that's good. You know, 18 points, 8 rebounds, couple of assists. Like, I'll take that.
Especially when you're not regarded as probably one of the, the premier players within the league. Like, they are really, really high quality numbers. And
I mean,
to do it across a career, as you said, like,
he was a great complementary player wherever he went, namely in Portland with Dame. But no, credit to the big guy.
Mate, enjoy retirement. A phenomenal career there. In other news, now, as announced as part of the new CBA, I know what you're thinking. No, it's not the Chinese Basketball Association, everyone's favourite league. The collective bargaining agreement, all NBA teams will now be positionless.
Yes.
So this meaning that we could have on, say, the all-NBA first team, Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid, without any concerns for doubling up in centres or power forwards or whatever the case may be. So very interesting news to come out of that. With that, though, it was also announced that to be eligible to feature on these all-NBA teams, there must be a minimum of 65 games played. What do you guys think about this?
65 games. So how many would that be missed?
So that's 17. So you're looking at, what is it, about 80% of the seasons?
Yeah. I think, to be honest with you, I think I said a few weeks ago that I think durability has to come into it. And I said at that time that I think 80% is about the number that I think that they should play to be eligible for the major awards. In saying that, I can sort of also see how players might become disgruntled over this kind of thing. Imagine just being under that 65 mark. You've had far and away an MVP caliber season or an all NBA caliber season, and you've missed out just due to that eligibility.
Was it Draymond during the week, I think, came out and said that, there's going to be a lot of disgruntled owners who are going to have to pay, not bum players, but not these top tier level players, exuberant contracts for making all NBA teams when they're not at that level, just because we're going to see some, probably otherwise players who would probably not make an all NBA team actually make it over the coming years.
For sure.
With the positionless thing.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
I would have preferred if they did front and back court instead. Because does that just mean like 5 of the best centers, say the league was dominated by centers, that'll make the first NBA team?
It does. But
yeah, I like if you have 2 guards and 2 power forward centers,
Okay, so similar to the All-Star selection.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you not think it should just be the best 5 players, period, within the league?
Yeah, I mean, I can respect it. I'm not too disgruntled at it, but from my point of view, I would like to see 2 front, 2 back, 3 back.
Especially with the way the league is at the moment, it is almost positionless. Players are
sure.
You look at Jokic, he's pretty much a 5 playing the point guard.
He's running point, isn't he?
Players are playing 1 through 5 now, so I 100% get what you mean there, Lee. Having a little bit of weight still to it, and maybe that's a nice middle point towards working towards completely positionless.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the way the league is at the minute, I feel like it was probably due. Ro, where do you weigh in there?
Yeah, well, I think it's probably due as well, and I like the fact that it forces guys almost to play the games that they might have been sitting out due to that old load management.
That old chestnut.
So it might mean that we get to see the stars more regularly, which is what every NBA fans want, and it's what the NBA in particular would love, because those guys are the guys who put bums on seats and eyes on TV. So I like it.
Here's an idea, and I've just, as you were going about it then, Ro, thought of this off the top of the head. Do you think they could almost do it like a game's missed based on how many away games you missed? Now, just stick with me here. Like we've seen a lot of players come out with quotes, Kobe, LeBron, that they wanted to play as many away games as possible because a fan might only get one chance in their lifetime to see that particular player.
For sure. Yep.
If home games, these fans are go multiple times during a year. Do you think there could be something there where it's, they were, a particular player's only allowed to miss, say, 5 away games a year? Could that be something? Is there anything in that, do you think?
There is something in that. Like, I 100% see where you're coming from. In saying that, I think you sort of have to, it is quite hard, and you sort of have to just have hard and fast rules, like clear lines as to when they will be eligible and when they won't be eligible. If you start getting into the nitty gritty of it, it gets a little bit too hard to understand who's actually eligible at the end of the year. But I like where you're coming from.
There we go, lads. Big piece of news there, the old CBA. In other news, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, but now with a little more clarity, Andrew Wiggins is set to make his return to the Warriors lineup. He's missed the last 21 games due to attending being with his father, who was suffering a serious medical illness.
So we found out what it
medical
was.
Issues,
Is that what it was?
Yeah. So it wasn't due to him. It wasn't due to injury, anything like that. Family reasons, as suspected. Huge acquisition there. Averaged 17 points, 5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 40% from 3 on the season thus far. Tell you what, to the reigning champs, it isn't a bad addition. And he's going to be a huge, huge key cog in their quest to go back to back.
Yeah, they suddenly go from a team who, like, I think a lot of NBA fans would have been very skeptical as to whether they would have actually made it out of that first round without him.
Well, currently, before you go on, currently sitting 6th. If things were to end today, they would be in a 3-6 matchup versus the Sacramento Kings.
And I think without Wiggins, I'd take the Kings. With Wiggins, it makes it a hell of a lot more interest in that proposition. So I'm so glad to see him back, because it means that the Warriors will be more or less at full strength now. So it's not like if they get knocked out, we've got all the Warriors fans saying, oh, if we had Wiggins, we would have made it past. But really happy to see it.
And do you think this, we spoke about it again, as I said, a couple of weeks ago, do you think the acquisition of Wiggy back could be the piece that gets them there? Gets them to back-to-back championships?
He definitely moves the needle a lot. He moves the needle the same way as I think someone like Chris Middleton would have moved the needle for the Bucks a couple of years ago.
Absolutely. Great comparison.
He's just that big of a factor on that Golden State Warriors team. I just wanted to bring up how sad it is how rumors can get blown out around the league, because we all heard what the rumors were surrounding Andrew Wiggins and why he wasn't playing, and it couldn't have been further from the truth. And I didn't believe it, but a lot of people believed it because one guy on TikTok came out and just made a video saying this what happened. No reliable source.
As there doesn't tend to be on Twitter a lot of the time, unless it's Shams or Woj. But what do people even need to know? Like, why do people need to, like, we obviously knew it was something serious for him to be out at a really vital part of the season and for the length that he was. It's just people sticking their nose where it's not wanted, I think.
I agree 100%. And that's, you kind of take everything with a grain of salt there, don't you, Lee? Like, you do have to kind of, we hear a lot in the media. There's a lot of sources, but there are only a few, as you said there, Ro, like the Wojers, the Shams of the league, who are really those reputable sources.
Yeah.
Brian Windhorse, another one there, Windy.
Yep.
But nevertheless, it is great to see him back. Really hope that he can fit in pretty seamlessly with this squad. And as you said, Ro, they're going to be back to just about 100% once again, and that's a scary proposition in the West.
No doubt.
Guys, let's transition
Daily Dribble
to our playing predictions. Now, as I said, top of the show, next week the playing kicks off. Both the East and Western Conference. We are now just days away from the regular season culminating. For the vast majority, a lot of these matchups are set. But what we're going to do today is kind of based it on, for any that aren't quite set, based it on who we think will be there.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you fellas reckon? Do you reckon East or West to start things?
I think East. Let's start on the East.
Let's start on the East side.
Just because they're first on my notes. So.
And the East are very set, aren't they? I feel like where the East are right now is how they're going to go into the play-in, to be honest. There's not much wiggle room as there is in the West.
Well, let's go. We might go from yourself, Lee. You give us your 9-10, who you think's going to win, 7-8, and then in the final chance kind of matchup, how you see things in the Eastern Conference playing out.
Well, in that 9-10, as it would be right now, it's Toronto versus Chicago. And I think that's going to be the case here.
Yep.
In the past, size has had a big factor in the matchup between these two. The Raps are in favour, winning 2 out of 3 games against the Bulls this year.
Yep.
They've just had a lot more size on them. Chicago has Vooch, and then you look past that, and it's Pat Williams in that starting lineup. There's not
Playoff Pat,
not a heap, but I think Chicago has more overall talent on their side, and I think their game plan going into this game will be to be as physical as possible, get in the paint as much as possible, kind of that bully bowl. And due to that, I think the Bulls will come out on top of this one. You know, you have multiple guys to lock down. You have DeRozan, you have Levine, but then you also have Vooch, who can stretch the floor. He can pop up the three. So I've got the Bulls advancing in that one, and then Toronto gets booted.
That's the end of them.
Do I keep going?
Keep carrying on, my friend.
I got Miami versus Atlanta for that. It'd be 7-8.
7-8,
yes. Off the bat, I think Hawks are going to take that one. I think Trae Young on his day is too hard to contain. His bag is too full.
Full of bricks.
But that's the thing. When you're in a pressure moment like this, if he can turn into villain Trae again with running mates DeJounte Murray, John Collins, Capella, Okongwu by his side, I think they're going to be a hard out, especially. And to be honest, I think a big factor will be who gains the home court advantage. If Atlanta do, I think they've got it.
So do you think Miami wins it if Miami are playing at home in that game?
I think they've got more of a chance, but I still think the Hawks will come out on top.
Okay. Them getting over Philly today, they've now got a 2-game lead, so they're going to hold home court, you would think, at this point. Miami, barring a complete catastrophe over the last couple of games. They look set to have home court advantage there.
Important. Yep.
And then so that would make Hawks advance to the playoffs. And in the last playing game, it'd be Miami versus Chicago. And I have Miami getting up in that one. I think they've just got too much playoff experience. Jimmy turns into that dog. Bam's improving year by year. And I think they'll be a bit too hard to shut down. And that would result in the Hawks and Miami advancing to the playoffs, which I think once they are in the playoffs, whoever they're versing, they're not going to be an easy out. I don't think it'll be a sweep.
I think particularly the Miami Heat, to be honest with you. Like, I think whoever comes up against them, at this point, I think it's us. I think it's the Boston Celtics at the minute who would probably come up against them if all things go according to plan.
Fun matchup, I reckon.
I think that's going to be a really tasty matchup, and it's not who I would personally like to play in the first round of the playoffs.
I'd give you a run for your money.
And that's sometimes... Like, we see this quite often. Sometimes in that first round, you don't want to sweep a team 4-zip. You want to actually be challenged a little bit.
Hardened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that it could be a good little test for the Celtics there.
It could be. It could be. I'll go next if you like, Nick.
Please, mate. Because away.
We like a bit of variety, and there's a few different answers in here for myself. In that Toronto-Chicago matchup, it's been quite tight between those two teams throughout the course of the season. But one of the big stats, I think, for mine, and at this stage, Toronto, it looks like will have home court advantage against Chicago. Toronto played very well at home, as I guess a lot of teams do, but 26-14 at home this season. I don't like Chicago's chance in a one-off game to try and take that game against Toronto north of the border. So I think Toronto are winning that. In the Miami-Atlanta game, again, Miami 26-14 at home this season, which I think is an important stat, and it shows that they're going to be it's going to be a tough out for them. And Miami have also gone 3-1 against Atlanta this season, so they've got the wood over them so far this season. So I think Miami will get into the playoff picture. As we were saying before, they're going to be a difficult team to out, even if they did go down that first round against whoever they come up against. It's a tricky one. And then in that last game, Atlanta and Toronto. Now, Toronto 14-26 away this season. Atlanta 2-1 against them this season. I think, as Lee was saying before, if we can get anywhere close to the resemblance of villain Trae, because they need that Trae Young to show up. And if he doesn't show up, I would give Toronto every chance. But I have faith that he will in the most important
Yep.
matchup, and particularly with so much on the line, I think that's when he plays his best games.
There you go. Love it. Yeah, okay. I'm just mulling over my head where we've differentiated between the two. Well, for myself, in the 9-10 matchup, Toronto and Chicago, I've got the winner as Toronto as well. I tend to side with you there, Ro. Just purely for the fact, if this was a 7-game series between the two, I would probably lean towards the Bulls. I would pick the Bulls, actually.
Okay.
But in this do-or-die game, I'm predicting the Raptors just because I really anticipate their starters are going to all play 40-plus minutes. Nick Nurse is going to throw the kitchen sink at it. We've seen time and time again the lack of faith he has in this bench. I think in a do-or-die game, he's really going to go for it. And with that starting 5, OG, Pirtle, Siakam, Van Vliet, Scotty Barnes, that is a very competent and capable starting 5.
For sure. Yep.
I worry if they get into early foul trouble and a couple of these blokes have to sit because, as we've said, once it comes to the bench, it's pretty slim pickings.
It is.
I don't want to hinge my hopes on Will Barton, who's been he had one good game the other day, but he's been very ordinary thus far. As I said, in a do-or-die game, I'm taking the Raptors in this one. In the 7-8 matchup, Miami versus Atlanta, I've got the winner as Miami. Purely as you said, Lee. Row is that dog. Jimmy Butler is that dog. You got that dog in you too?
When it's needed.
There you go. Little pit bull. Mr. Worldwide. But Jimmy Butler is a dog. And I think, every time I think of Jimmy and playoff performances, I think of that series a couple of years ago in the bubble, that bubble run and that bubble performance against the Lakers in the NBA Finals. Granted, came up short in that one, but his display and he spent everything and then some. He was well and truly into the reserve tank, and that's kind of how I picture Jimmy, leaving it all on the court. And I just have a little more faith in his composure alongside of Bam and Co. For as great as Trey is, I love Trey, but his efficiency this year has been horrendous. I don't think it's quite clicked with Murray as they'd hoped it would.
They didn't even think they'd be in the play-in. They would have for sure thought they had locked in that 5 or 6 spot, 100%. If not higher.
Yeah, that was the benchmark, wasn't it?
And I mean, very, very early days, it kind of looked like it was working, to be honest with you. Like that matchup we remember in those first few weeks of the season looked like, oh, geez, Atlanta looks like they're going to be like one of the real contenders this season. And as we saw, they dropped off quickly and it just didn't quite pan out the way they thought it would.
No, that's it. And, then that transitions us to the final kind of last chance saloon matchup between the Hawks and the Raptors. I really struggled. I toed and froed with this one for quite a long time. I am going to take the Hawks. I just think their shooting might be a little bit too much to contend with. Looking as, probably the swing players, Bogdanovic and Sadiq Bey, I think the acquisition of Bey was really massive. Probably almost underrated at the moment.
For sure.
He's a monster as well, like almost undersized, but gets the boards. Like the offensive boards, he does a really high quality job on that end. I think he'll just be able to kind of mix it with some of those big boys and that length and athleticism that the Raptors possess. So out of these 2 games, I'm backing Trey to have at least one decent game.
Yeah.
And I think, not too often we see him have 2 absolute stinkers. I'm backing that to come in game 2. So hence the Hawks move forward in that one, thus creating the 1-8 matchup there against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I like that. And when you were just touching on Trey to have at least one decent game, the thing that's deceiving about Trey's game is he could have 28 points and 12 assists. And from a box score perspective, you think, and to a certain extent, it is a good game. But from a box score perspective, you think, oh, this guy's just had an absolute ripper of a game.
Yeah.
Then you look at his field goal percentage and he's been, 30% from the field.
Turnovers plus minus. And that's the thing when people, and I know we do it, everyone does it.
For sure.
You do read into box scores, but there is a lot more to it if you go into the deeper analytics of actual positivity on the court. And often he's one that's kind of doesn't pass the eye test.
Yeah. I know Road not because you had Trey on your fantasy team, right? And
I did.
And you look, and I know these type of players you look and you're like, 30 points, 10 assists, and why does he have 30 fantasy
Where are all
points?
the points at? Yeah.
Because he missed 8 threes, you know.
Yeah.
Will he be making an appearance next season with money on the line? Are you giving your money to Trey? Are you putting it in his hands?
If I have the opportunity not to pick Trey, I will not pick him.
I'm not gonna lie, I've already started my my draft.
Have you? You started the draft board the last season. The current season's not even over.
Yeah.
Wow. Deep dives.
Go straight back to work.
My question, and I'll ask this for the West as well.
Yep.
Which out of these 4 teams that we all mentioned, we mentioned the same ones. Which team's future hinges the most on making the playoffs? If that makes sense.
East, sorry.
In the East, like.
So
does that make sense?
Not really. So sorry. So as in.
So which team's future do you think if one of these teams didn't make it, they'd blow it up, or if they didn't make it, they've got nothing to lose? Like.
I reckon the Raptors.
Raptors again, or Bulls, yeah.
The Raptors, I'm saying, just because of their lack of depth,
that
they could try and trade in one of these pieces or 2 of these pieces, an OG and a Fred, try and make them a little more well-rounded from top to bottom. That's
are you saying out of these 4 teams, which team has the most to lose if they don't make it?
My question is, it's pretty much saying which team do you think has is most likely to blow it up if they don't make the playoffs?
Blow it up. Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. Toronto would probably, they're already on the border of it, aren't they? But in terms of the most to lose, I think Atlanta, given the acquisition that they made over the offseason, if they were to miss the playoffs altogether, that wouldn't go down well, would it? But I think they'll make it. But gee, a lot riding on these next few games.
But then as you say that, I think about it as well. When you look at the Heat, you know, they are aging a little bit. You know, look at Kyle Lowry, Kevin Love there coming into the fold. Jimmy Butler's not getting any younger. Could they look to kind of, I guess, start afresh? That number 1 guy unequivocally becomes Tyler Hero. You know, I could see a way in all the teams kind of go that route.
So the Miami Heat look and say, our window or our door is probably closed after we lost in the bubble to LA if they miss the playoffs this season. I think that's a possibility.
Absolutely.
You know, how we thought the Suns' door was closing. Maybe it's the same for Miami, because I haven't even thought about that really. But now that you mention it, it could be reality.
Very good. Well, Ro, push on, mate, with the Western Conference. What have you got for us?
Western Conference. Now, Nick, how a few weeks changes my mind in basketball.
Unbelievable.
I remember when we were doing our potential play-in matchups.
Yes.
I didn't have much faith in the Lakers at all, to the point where I don't even think I had them finishing in the play-in whatsoever.
You cut them, as many people did.
And I guess over the last few weeks, they've restored my faith in what they can do, at least in the playoff picture. So in this first round, Lakers v Pelicans, I have the Los Angeles Lakers winning that game and securing a spot in the playoffs. So far away from where I thought that they would get to.
Good matchup against the Grizzlies too, if that were to eventuate.
Yeah, I'd have faith in them as well. Yep. And they've been 3-1 against the Pelicans this season. I think when it all comes down to it, with a healthy LeBron, if they have their main core on the court when this playoff series starts, I think they're going to be too difficult of an out. I've seen so many holes in this Pelicans lineup, particularly in the back half of the season. It's been really disappointing because at one stage they were in and around the picture, and they were
like first, second.
They were flying, weren't they? And then they just dropped off a cliff. Was it when? Well, it was when Zion went down, wasn't it? So
shows the power he has, doesn't it? Like the impact he has on this team, massive.
And I don't think you'd want to be overly relying on CJ McCollum. He's a handy scorer. I like CJ McCollum, but I don't think he's going to be the difference for the Pelicans. So
Ingram's the guy who gets the rock.
I think so. I think I'd probably give it to Ingram. Yeah. He's more of a difficult matchup for mine, in every sense of the word. And then, so the Lakers get through in that one. Minnesota and OKC. Now, a telling stat that I saw was throughout the course of the season, Minnesota have been 4-0 against OKC. So they've well and truly got the wood on them. I take a lot
Yeah,
into these.
4-0,
I
right?
don't
4-0.
think so. I was looking at it. I thought it was 2-1 or something.
4-0. 4-0 from what I saw.
Maybe we're
Unless I was looking at a different
places.
schedule, but now I'm going to have to double check it.
Oh,
But
no.
no, 4-0
Yep.
from what I saw.
4-0.
And if that is the case, which I believe it is, then I think Minnesota have well and truly got the confidence to take this. I know it's a one-game matchup, but I think that they'll take it.
Lee pushing digits here. Just
No, OKC won in
Lee's
December.
ready to call me out.
I
live
saw
on the
they won
pod.
in December. They lost 2 of them, but they got up in December. Yep.
Don't know what I was looking at then. I must have been looking at
so 2-1 versus 4-0 sounds a little bit different. Has that changed your thought process?
Was
now,
it
Ryan?
2-1?
2-1. Yeah, they got up by like 6 in December, 7.
Oh no!
What? I'm looking at unreliable sources on the NBA app on the schedule.
Oh,
What is going on?
4th
Okay.
of December.
No, you've had a
Yeah.
shocker. So does that change your opinion at all? Are you still riding the Wolves?
Look, I don't want the Wolves to win,
You've
but
thrown a real wrench in here, Lee.
you've rattled me. I think the Wolves will still get up though.
Yep.
I think in terms of high end. Oh, actually, no, it's too difficult because they've both got high end talent. But I think Minnesota will probably win it, particularly if it's at home.
Yep.
OKC have a 15-25 record as well, so away from home. So I think that's going to come into play. And then in that last matchup, Minnesota and Pelicans. I've got the Pelicans winning this one actually. And
okay.
initially a few weeks ago, as I said, time changes when it comes to basketball, and I think it's partly I don't want Minnesota to make the playoffs, but it's also partly I don't have faith in them.
What is it about the Wolves? Do you think?
I just think they're a bit they're a bit all over the place. Their starting 5 in general doesn't fill me with a heap of confidence.
Yeah.
I said this about this time last year. They're not a smart bowl club, and that hasn't changed. They're very clumsy.
Yeah.
The cat is all over the place. You know, they're just not. They're somewhat well-rounded, but they don't know what to do with all their talent.
And I don't think they've, like we saw last year with Pat Bev. Like he's
the video of the tears standing up on the table.
He wanted to win. He's an absolute dog. I look at their team and I think that they're lacking those type of dogs this year. I think they're lacking guys who truly want to win. I think you've got guys like Karl Anthony Towns, who I think's got a really big ego. And I don't think that's the kind of player who I'd like coming in a one-off game to make the playoffs. So, yeah, partly I want them to lose, but partly I think the Pelicans might have the wood over them.
It's funny you say that because I watched a video. What's today? We're recording Friday. It must have been Wednesday, I think. And it was this video. It was like with Titanic music, I think.
Yep.
My Heart Will Go On. And it was when the Wolves won that playing game and there's Pat Bev running around.
Amazing scene.
Oh, it's just if you're having a bad day, just knowing the backstory, how it's all eventuated, him being bounced to LA, then now where is he out in the Bulls?
Chicago, yeah.
But what it meant to him at the time is just priceless. The comedy of it all. He's great value.
You'd love to play with those kind of guys.
It's priceless. Well, Roy, it makes me very happy to hear that you're back on board the Lakers train.
Yes, purple and gold.
I'd just like to say, and you know, I know we haven't made the playoffs as of yet, so it might be a little bit premature here. But suck it. Each and every one of you who wrote off the Lakers, you dismissed them so early. They were all but gone. And in part, it's almost a suck it to myself because I was pretty disgruntled at the time. What a turnaround. And I just want to give a massive shout out to the Lakers front office.
Yeah.
Now, over the course of the last 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot of questionable decisions. For better or worse, there's been a lot of moving parts. But I think that trade period we had with the acquisition of D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, even Malik Beasley, all these other players, I think has no doubt turned this franchise around.
Yeah.
I am going to pretty much put the house on it, 100% say that if these moves weren't made, we were not making the play-in. It was a really kind of balls on the line move. It's paid dividends so far. Fair play.
And that's what turned my opinion on them around as well. Like, you actually saw that they weren't willing to just succumb to this another underperforming season. They actually thought, well, look, this is the time that we have to turn it around. Let's get some players who complement LeBron, complement AD, some shooters on the team. let's just not give in to people thinking like myself that we wouldn't make even the play in. Let's actually do something about it and prove them wrong. And so far, it looks like they will prove me wrong and plenty of others.
There you go, Lee. Beautiful stuff. Well, let's get into my predictions here. Starting with the 9-10 matchup, having the Minnesota Timberwolves playing the OKC Thunder. Oh, I'll go 7-8. Sorry, I've gone the wrong way there. My apologies. In the 7-8 matchup, the Lakers versus Pelicans.
Jeez, I wonder who.
There's no possible way. There's no reality in which I don't pick the Lakers here.
Yes.
Again, I think it'll be a really exciting matchup. And if I was a neutral fan, it's kind of a shame that Zion won't be playing. Because I think, had he would, though, first and foremost, I don't think they'd be in the play-in.
No.
But I think this matchup would be a hell of a lot more exciting. I just think the Lakers will be too good. I think with LeBron coming back, all those pieces we just mentioned, AD looking in pretty good nick the last week or so, now that LeBron's back as his running mate. I've got them winning this one and going into that matchup against the Grizzlies as, despite being 7th seed, probably the favourite.
Yeah, could be.
There you go. So we'll see how that plays
really
out.
Quick on AD. Did you see when he went down and like his ankle didn't look good, but they just kept playing for like two up and down possessions?
Every time that guy goes down, which is multiple times during a game, my heart just sinks because he is made of glass, and it is for his, LeBron's the best player. He's one of the best players, if not the best player in the world in basketball history on this Lakers team. But I think AD is probably the key. If he goes down, I think they're probably screwed because in the center stocks, they don't really have much. So, I get very nervous every time I see him go down.
Yes, yep.
In the 9-10 matchup, Minnesota playing host to the Thunder. I've got the winners, the T-Wolves. Now, I think this will be a really, really fun matchup. If OKC can catch fire from three, look at all the Jalen Williams, the multiple Jay Williams. Giddy's knocking them down a little more consistently. SGA, Isaiah Joe. If they can make their threes, I think they could potentially pull this one out. Yet I think the size that the Thunder possesses will just stifle this Thunder team. Gobert, Towns, McDaniels there. I think they're just going to be a little bit too long. So I have them moving ahead. Again, take nothing away from OKC this season. A tremendous success.
Huge.
But I see them bowing out and thus creating the Wolves versus Pelicans in that final chance matchup. I'm going to back the Pelicans in. I was, again, another one I toed and froed with for quite a while. I think I just trust their scoring a little bit more.
I think so, yeah.
Ingram and McCollum I have a little more faith in them than I do Edwards and Conley. That's kind of where I separated it. And hopefully with that Herb Jones future DPOY.
He will be.
He will be, no doubt about it. We'll be able to put the clamps on Towns, I think. Gobert's not going to hurt you from the outside, so Valanciunas can block up the paint, him and Herb there. I think they just pose really concerning matchup problems for the Wolves. So got the Pelicans there.
Good one.
Yep, like that.
Lee.
I'll go. So this will be the 7-8 matchup. Lakers versus Pelicans. I have the Lakers taking this one. As you guys said, the primary scorer will be Brandon Ingram.
Yep.
A couple of months ago, I wouldn't have said this, but with this squad the Lakers have now, I think they've got enough formidable defenders to lock down BI if he's going to be the main scorer.
Yeah.
McCollum's been a bit streaky all year, so you don't really know what you're going to get out of him on this play-in matchup.
Never been that guy really either that you kind of, when he was with Portland, you kind of attach the farm to Dame.
Yeah.
And CJ just accompanies him.
Yes.
But you kind of, if BI's not firing, you need a bit more from CJ. And is there that proven track record of him being, the go-to scorer? Not really.
Probably not.
Really.
No.
But in saying that, if the Lakers this game have a high turnover game as they did versus the Clippers, this will probably be the Pelicans game. So
shouldn't even be in the plane. They really
horrible.
For as good as they've been the last few weeks, they really dicked that up yesterday against the Clippers. That would have been the chance to pretty well, not guaranteed, but put them in a playoff position.
Yep.
They could bypass all this plane nonsense, and they just sucked from
It was such a massive game as well.
Disgusting.
And the Clippers made a fool of them, and I would have loved to be Russell Westbrook on that night because
had the last laugh.
Yeah, he had the last laugh.
And that was without PG as well.
Which, huge win. Where do we see, just quickly. Clippers, where do we have them?
It's hard. Some days I'm high on them. Some days I'm low on
They're
them.
such a Jekyll and Hyde, aren't
they
they?
are,
You
they
just
are.
don't know what you're going to get. I see them as a second round team. In terms of the West, I would have the Nuggets. I'd have the Suns. I'd have the Warriors. I can't really say the Lakers, seeing as they lost yesterday convincingly. I'd have those three at least over them. So I'll say second round.
They're in that second tier of the West.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where do you
think?
think?
I think I'm with you. I think they're probably like a second round proposition. But in saying that, they've also got the potential to potentially get to the Western Conference Finals. So
hinges on when PG comes
it
back.
does. That's the big one. Yeah.
So that would mean Lakers advance to the playoffs. Then we go to the 9-10 matchup, which would be Minnesota versus OKC.
You're going to do it, aren't you? You're going to do it.
I really, to the bottom of my heart, want OKC to win so bad.
So do I.
So bad. They really don't have much to lose. It's not like they're going to blow it up if they lose as well. So they'll be playing with all their might. But like you were saying, Nick, I think the size that OKC, the size that Minnesota have on top of OKC is too much. I was looking at the OKC Thunder starting lineup. Tell me, it'd be a different story if Chet was there. But they've got Giddey, Shea, Lou Dort at the 3, Jalen Williams at the 4, and then the other Jalen Williams at the 5. It's Townsend and Gobert. I don't like their odds.
They're going to get eaten.
They will. But in saying that, Minnesota are going to need to play to their strengths and use their rebounding to win. Because I think if they don't, and if it's a close game up to the fourth quarter, I think OKC are probably the better closers, and I think they will take it. If it comes down to the wire, it's a fourth quarter game. I think OKC has it.
Less pressure on OKC to win that one as well.
Got to give a bit of love to Giddey as well. We always do. I will every chance I get. You said he's picked up his shooting. I think he's added that shooting element entirely to his game, and it's changed his game completely. He used to be
in with confidence.
Yeah, he used to be this guy that you wouldn't really have to worry about him shooting, but he was an amazing passer. Now he's an amazing passer, and he's a threat to shoot as well.
To highlight another Aussie, doesn't that just show the difference between him and Ben Simmons?
Yes.
I'm not saying he was on that level of poor shooting, Ben Simmons level, but he actually made adjustments, worked on his craft. A big point guard, with incredible vision, incredible, passing ability and range and defensive acumen. But Ben Simmons is kind of the failed Josh Giddey almost, isn't he?
For sure. And it's just two different beasts mentally as well, because we look at Josh Giddey. We even saw his scouting report where they've essentially said coming into the NBA, he couldn't play basketball. He couldn't
do the horrible scouting report.
Couldn't do the essential stuff that basketball players need to do at that level. He's gone and proven everybody wrong, and he's only still very early in his career, so he's only going to improve. Whereas Ben Simmons, people started to get down on him, as I think people have the right to do. If you're not performing at a high level or at the level that you should be, people are going to talk about it. And he just cracks the shits. And now we don't even think of him as a potential NBA player. He could be out of the league soon enough.
There you go.
That would bring it to the final matchup.
Yeah.
So that would be Minnesota versus Pelicans. And even right now, as I'm talking, I don't know who I'd put in front. I'll probably go with Minnesota. With not much reasoning, but I think it'd be a completely different story if Zion was there.
Yeah.
But I think Minnesota will probably take them and secure that 8th spot.
Well, here's one little thing we haven't mentioned.
Dallas
at the moment. So as we speak, OKC have one game to go versus the Memphis Grizzlies. The Dallas Mavericks play the Chicago. Well, I think they have the Spurs first, so they play the Spurs, then Chicago. Those two games. Could we see the Mavs make the play?
Very potentially.
And look at you sitting there with the nervous sweat on, just eyeing over the jersey there. A lot hinges on the next few days, and I'm so. I know we've all said OKC, and they currently sit ahead in the standings. Do we give them a chance? Are we backing them in? Do you think they can do it? The Dallas Mavericks, I think it was around February, they had forgive me, was it a 65 or was it 80% chance of making the playoffs?
Sounds
They
about
were
right.
down to the other day, April 2nd or whatever, 8%.
8%.
Horrific.
So Memphis. So OKC have Memphis Grizzlies. Is that right?
That's correct. And then the Mavs have the Bulls and the Spurs.
I think given the fixture, we may have premature. I know they're not sitting in there at the moment, but they are every chance to be sitting in that last playing spot. And if they are, with two talents, I know they've had a shocking end to the season, but with those two talents, I wouldn't write them off.
Grizzlies are pretty well locked into that second spot. Do they rest the players, though?
That's another really good question.
A lot of intriguing storylines within that.
I don't think so, to be honest. I don't think so. I think they go into the playoffs with...
But they would, because depending on how it plays out, they might have to play one of these teams in their matchup.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they rather probably play OKC than the Mavs?
That.
So maybe they
I would
rest up.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, potentially.
I think I saw them. It is very 50-50. I know we all put OKC because they're sitting there, but I think I saw somewhere Mavs have 53% chance of getting into the play-in, and OKC has like 47% on them. So
Based off the
I
fixture.
don't know, it's like 50-50. I just did OKC because they're sitting there now, but
I did OKC, and then thinking about that with possibly the Grizzlies resting players and things like that, I'm backing OKC in, but we could be sitting here eating our words, and the Mavs could make it, which if they didn't would be a train wreck of a season. That's certainly up for discussion in the coming weeks and coming months once the season concludes, but a very disappointing latter half of the season there for the Mavs.
Yes. Oh, geez. You'd hate to be a Mavs supporter with so much hype surrounding them.
Indeed, wouldn't you?
Dearie me.
Lads, there you have it. There is our predictions for the upcoming playing tournament starting as of next week. We've finally made it. Postseason basketball is here. We have got limited days of regular season basketball to play out. Still some intriguing things still to happen over the course of the next couple of days, namely, as we just spoke about, the Mavs there. So very excited to see how that plays out. Guys, as always, be sure to stay up to date with all of our socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, as well as subscribing wherever you listen or watch the show, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We certainly do appreciate all the continued support.
We do.
And I tell you what, I am beyond pumped for next week, guys. It is going to be an absolute blast.
Tell you what, it sounds weird, but regular season to playoff basketball is almost like watching a completely different sport.
Oh, it is.
The tempo slows down, the defense tightens up. It's like
every
watching
game
different
means
teams.
more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Fan interaction just goes through the roof.
Oh, absolutely. And you get to see, once we get into the playoffs and these longer series going, up against the same team multiple times in a row, little just things play out between players, little niggling issues, fans, coaches. Rivalries build from there. So
it's do or die.
A lot to look forward to, guys. From myself, Lee and Ro, guys, we hope you have a fantastic Easter, have a fantastic week. Enjoy the start of the play-in, and we can't wait to talk to you next week to break it all down. Till then, bye.